If your relationship is filled with arguments, insecurity, resentment, distance, or broken trust, communication is not the problem. The real problem is the distorted beliefs creating them. I'm Relic Vessels and I help people stop the arguments breaking their relationship. I spent 19 years growing up in an abusive home, was married for 5 years, got divorced. Current relationship has been going for 14 years with my best friend. Other than real life experience, I studied NLP, CBT, REBT, and I'm mentored and supervised by Steve Johnson, the former president of the Albert Ellis Institute. And in this video, I'm going to give you an example of how I help people actually stop those arguments. One is going to be aimed at individuals, the other one's going to be aimed at couples. And if you want a free argument decoder to help you identify your beliefs creating those arguments, click the link in the description. So let's start off with couples, and the same framework can be used for family. We'll call this couple black and red for simplicity. And we'll use the problems of jealousy and anger because everyone is familiar with jealousy and anger. And if you yourself have a problem with jealousy or anger, pay attention, you're about to learn a lot. So for this couple, black's trigger is that red hugs a stranger. The emotion is jealousy. And when black feels jealous, the behaviors attached to the jealousy is accusations. Black accuses red of cheating, of wanting to sleep with a stranger that they've hugged. Black also weaponized sex and affection. Because you hugged a stranger and spoke to the stranger, there will be no sugar and no honey for your coffee. You will drink that bitter coffee on your own. So anytime red did something that black did not like, there was no sex and affection. They also went further and restricted red's behavior, saying that you cannot speak to strangers, you cannot hug strangers, and when you do, no sex and affection. Red's trigger then becomes black's jealousy. The emotion for red is anger. Red feels angry about the accusations, about the weaponization of sex and affection, angry about the restriction of movement. And when red proceeds to feel angry, their behaviors attached to the anger was to recruit allies, meaning they spoke to their friends and family members about black's jealousy. They also continued to insult their partner, to insult black by calling black crazy for their jealousy. And during the recruitment of allies, they said to their friends and family, black is so crazy. Black tells me what I can and cannot do. They also went on to use the silent treatment, ignoring black. And in times of the heated arguments, they would hit the wall because they were so angry. When red continues to act out these behaviors of recruiting allies, insulting black, this then tends to increase black's emotion of jealousy, and we can also add in their insecurity. Now, a very important distinction. This is not generic therapy and coaching. I do not hold space. I'm not here to listen to you vent, complain, and blame. I'm problem solving, not problem obsessing. So one of the things I'll ask you for is a goal. What do you want? What would you like to achieve with us working together? And then I measure progress every fourth session to make sure we are heading towards goal achievement. So in this case, for example, I would measure the jealousy and the anger. How intense are these jealousy and anger emotions? How long do they last? How often do they take place? And together we'll work at reducing that so that you don't only feel better, but you actually get better. And that is the biggest difference between holding space, problem obsessing, and problem solving. One helps you feel better, but the same problem will keep on happening in a week or a month's time. The other one helps you feel better, but also get better to solve the problem so that it does not take place again. Now, black's goal in this situation was to feel secure within the relationship. Red's goal was effective communication rather than jealousy. So as long as red feels angry and red's behavior is to recruit allies and to insult black, use the silent treatment, hit the wall during heavy arguments. Does this help black feel secure or insecure and jealous? And when black continues to feel insecure and jealous and accuse red of cheating, weaponizing sex and affection, restrict behavior, does that help red achieve the goal of effective communication? Or does it continue to influence the anger? So right here now we have what we call a destructive pattern that takes place between the two of them. A pattern of jealousy and anger. And they would continue to play out this pattern for 2 years before coming to see me. And what we want to do is change this from a destructive pattern to a constructive pattern. But in order to change these emotions and behaviors, we have to look at what creates them. And the key to everything, the key to what creates your emotions and behaviors is your belief system. Now, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about what do you believe about this situation, which is different to thoughts. Think of beliefs being thoughts that you believe is actually true. That's the simplest way for me to describe it to you. So in this scenario, in digging down into Black's beliefs, and also remember that for the most part, your beliefs are unconscious. So it's my job to bring them into your conscious awareness. So Black's beliefs with regards to Red hugging the stranger was Red must not hug strangers, or that means they will cheat on me. Another one was all X are cheaters. All men/women are cheaters. Being single means I'm broken. Now, can you see where the insecurity comes from? Can you see where the jealousy will start to come from? If Black continues to hold this in their core, they will continue to operate out of this position. Think of this being the root, the beliefs being the root, and the emotions and behaviors being the flower and branches. If you do not take out the root and you just try to cut a branch or a flower, another one will come up. So with that being said, if you're someone that struggles with jealousy, you will notice that you always feel jealous in every relationship because Red is not the problem. The real problem is your belief system. And if you never change your belief system, you will always have a problem with a red, a blue, a green. And if you take a look at Red's belief system that is creating their anger and their behaviors of recruiting allies, insulting the partner, is that Black must not be jealous and he's childish for being jealous. I cannot stand Black's jealousy. The relationship with Black is terrible. Now, can you see where that anger comes from? So once we have all of this information, we have the trigger emotions, behavior, goal, and distorted beliefs. Then we begin the change work, right? We move from distorted beliefs to accurate beliefs. And when we change distorted beliefs to accurate beliefs using the belief of all men/women are cheaters. Now, in reality, that is not true. That's not based on fact, right? It's based on this person's experience with people that they've chosen to be with. So a more accurate belief in this scenario would be most men/women that I've been with have cheated on me, but that does not mean Red will. Now, when the person actually believed that, are they still insecure? Are they still jealous? No, then they have a different emotion. And then it's my job to help them change from, in this scenario, a destructive emotion like jealousy to change it to a constructive emotion like concern. Because when jealousy carries the behaviors of accusation, accusing the Red of cheating and wanting to sleep with the stranger, concern carries the behavior of effective communication, telling Red about their fears, telling them what they've been through, being vulnerable with them, asking questions rather than accusing, asking them about who the stranger was, and telling them how they felt when they hugged the stranger, thereby helping Red achieve their goal of effective communication, which then eliminates the anger and all the behaviors attached to anger. But let's say Red still felt angry about this situation. I would then help them change their beliefs. So just taking the one of I can't stand Black's jealousy. Again, that is distorted. My job is to help them change it to a more accurate belief. So something like Black's behavior is frustrating, but I can understand why they would feel that way based on their previous experience. And then again, I would help them change the destructive emotion from anger to something like frustration, which in this scenario would be a constructive emotion, not to be confused with a positive emotion, right? Because positive thinking is not going to work in this scenario, right? Red is not going to feel happy about being accused of cheating. Is not going to be happy about the weaponization of sex and affection, happy about the restriction of their behaviors, but they can feel frustrated rather than angry. And instead of carrying the anger behaviors of recruiting allies, insulting the partner, aggression and passive aggressiveness, frustration changes the behavior to assertiveness. And when we move to assertive behavior, Red then confronts Black, telling them that they are unhappy with the situation that is taking place, asking them how can they get over this, How can they move forward? And can they move forward? Does Black want to move forward? Following it up with saying that they love them, that they want to be with them, right? And when Red communicates assertively, telling Black what they want, telling them that they love them, asking them clarifying questions, how can they move on? How can they get over it? Black then achieves their goal of feeling more secure, thereby changing a destructive pattern between the two of anger and jealousy to a constructive pattern of frustration and concern rather. And if you've been paying attention, you would have noticed that in this scenario, and for most scenarios, I don't need both people in the room when working on a relationship. Of course, both is always better because you get input from both parties. But say, for example, Black just came to me with the problem of jealousy because he Red hugged a stranger. Behaviors and beliefs and everything else was still the same. The goal was still the same. Again, I would help them challenge and change these beliefs, change the emotion to concern. Their behavior would be different, thereby influencing Red without me even having to work on Red and talk to Red. I like to think of relationships as doing a dance together, right? Imagine me and my partner doing swing dancing, right? I'm spinning them around, flicking them in the air, and all of a sudden I grab them and I do the tango with them, right? Their behavior changes with me. Now, they're not forced to change, but my behavior does highly influence them to change. Unless they do not want to be with me, I cannot force that. If they want to still continue swing dancing with someone else, that is their choice. They have free will. I then can find someone else to do tango with me. But rather let that happen now than in 5 or 10 years' time. Because your most valuable asset is time. You cannot get it back. You can always meet another partner. But for the most part, meeting another partner is irrelevant if you do not work on your own anger and jealousy problems, or your own anxiety, fear, guilt, etc. problems. And if you want to work with me, learn to do this yourself, watch me work with a volunteer, or join a free Q&A session, go to relationshipswithlily.com and I'll see you there.